But in any case, let me give you the instruction that we've done every week since we've been doing this class um, as our regular practice. Why don't you guys take your physical decks and go ahead and practice your, various kind of shuffling technique, whatever it is. Remember, I really, really recommend against doing the fanning and folding method like you do with regular playing cards. That's liable to rip the card stock. These are much thicker and much heavier.
Oh, I figured
Uh,
that out as soon as I saw these.
yeah, yeah. So just doing the flop, it's interesting. I don't know why it is, but when I looked it up online, they call that the Hindu flop. Whereas I showed you last week,
Sounds like a
I,
dance.
I take my deck of cards and I just throw it in my hands and I'll do it over and under. And then on occasion, I'll literally flip part of the deck around in the other direction.
Yeah.
This way, it's very gentle on the cards and I mix them up. But by flipping them 180 degrees, I also make sure that the poles are redistributed in a random way. So when you're ready, of course, yep, there they are.
My
Kath,
hand doesn't fit. It
yes,
just
I know. That's why you cup them in your hand,
They're
or you
made
can
that way.
always do it. You can always do it like little kids did. Put it on the table and
Right, that's what
just
I do.
smear it around.
I've done that too.
That feels
Yeah,
so powerful to do. Just make a mess.
exactly. It's a good thing. I have to create a spread called the inner child spread, I think.
Yep, there you
Oh,
go.
that would be a
And
good one.
and then say how you do this is you just throw your cards out.
If you put all the positive poles in one direction, that might be considered cheating.
The only person that you may be modifying or messing with is yourself. So uh, really, you know.
And the cards will still find ways of getting the message across to you, even if they don't have the negative pole one.
They
Yep.
probably
See, I
would.
like that spiritualist faith right
There's
there. There
there's
you
no
go.
escape.
That's so good. Yeah,
wait,
there's no escape. That's
There's
it.
many
wait.
avenues.
What's
Is it
that,
three
Kath?
card? I'm sorry. Did you three cards, one card? Have we got there
Just
yet?
one, just
Okay.
one for today. And you don't even have to ask a question. It's just kind of like notice what it informs you of for today. And by
Oh
the look in
man.
your face, either Kathy were yawning or
Oh no,
it was a fart.
horrified, horrified.
Okay. Horrified. Okay. Well,
Lovely.
why don't you start by describing your card that you were horrified? And there's Paige. Ah, Pluto. Okay, and you got it in the positive pole.
Oh my God, I got the negative pole of Pluto.
Oh my God. We have a couple of
Nice.
change. Quick, everybody get offline and hide. We have a couple of change agents.
Black hole
Yeah,
of
they balance
purple.
each other out, Steve. It's okay.
Oh, they cancel each other out. Okay. And then Paige got the Venusian card. She's doing, and then wow. And then, okay. So let's see.
Catherine got
Very
there.
You,
intellectual.
okay. So anybody,
Oh, wait.
what's your first impressions of your cards? And then we can go through those.
Well, mine is menacing. Oh my gosh, that's yikes.
You don't seem the type.
And like I said, always just notice your reactions. Maybe it has nothing to do with you. Were you thinking about something that
No,
might have
I
been?
just said, what card should I pull tonight?
Ah, okay. All
I
right
think you
then.
pulled an ice card.
Oh,
An ice card.
yeah,
Oh, good one, Paige.
yeah.
That's good. Oh,
Well, they're definitely all around.
Yeah, mine was tranquility, and
Oh, nice.
I was thinking that in the positive pole, I was thinking that I hope I don't get a bad one. And
Hey, that works.
now I want you all to notice how much your mind still goes into binary thinking of good, bad, positive, negative, and things you want to reject as the things you want to feel relief about. What if they were all just messengers? What if they were all just something to like a Rorschach to alert to your reactions? They're not the truth themselves. They're reflections for what you guys can see about a personal truth that can come out when you pick a card. All right. Well, okay, Kath. Well, for Barbara and Kath, we got their Plutonian reactions. From what I understand, by the way, you guys, Pluto, the United States is having its Pluto return. So, no wonder we've got a lot of change and disruption and destruction and disillusionment, I mean, hey,
Well,
Pluto,
I mean,
One of the things you said about the negative on your website is that a devil is in disguise acting in your midst. A person of great cunning is undermining others. That's going on a lot.
it points to me, doesn't it?
oh, Kath, do you want to be evil tonight?
No,
You can be
not,
Dr. Evil.
I don't take that as anybody in this particular group, but
No,
Oh,
I
good.
think it's a greater
in the area. Yeah.
picture.
Yeah.
Ah, the
Yeah.
bigger
Greater scheme
picture.
of things.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We have
All right.
our congressperson is one of those. I'm probably going to go see her in person tomorrow.
All right.
Found out where
Well,
she's going to show up at a public meeting, and a whole bunch of people are going to show up and ask her questions because she's been avoiding everybody
oh, that's
and telling and in giving outrageous responses to reasonable questions. So,
Uh-oh.
Do you think she'll actually show up this time?
and she's a Republican,
well,
isn't she?
it's hard. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. How'd
why.
you guess?
Yeah,
I don't know. She's on a panel with somebody from the Orange County Supervisors. The Cleveland National Forest, which I used to live actually in the Cleveland National Forest, stretches all along the Saddleback Mountain and the Santa Ana Range. That's one of the areas that's listed to be sold under this ugly bill.
Ugly
Yeah.
bill.
I mean, it's all wildlife, and that's where the local leopards and not the leopards, the bobcats run, and
Yeah.
a lot of life that doesn't come out of the forest, and it runs quite a ways through Southern California. That's supposedly one of the places on the.
Maybe someone will buy it with a totally philanthropic point of view and keep it as a protected space.
No, it's going to
I
be
doubt that.
it's going to be
I
bought
know.
by either billionaires or corporations.
Well, there are philanthropic
They say-
billionaires. We keep our
They
fingers
say
crossed.
it's to solve the homeless problem.
So
That's
you
what-
guys,
Oh.
I know that it is very easy to go down this rabbit hole, and I spell that RIBID, not RIBB, not rabbit hole. So
RABBIT.
yeah, I just want to acknowledge that it is easy to twirl through that. So who else has got a reaction to their cards if they have one that you would like to share? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and
The
start.
reaction I got
Okay.
is not what the card was. My first response was, "Ooh, that's curious. I wonder what that means. I want to explore more." So I felt very receptive to it, and then I found out that it's about the truth will set you free, basically.
Yeah,
a
make you
revelation is
free.
coming. Yeah,
If you
a
read
revelation.
it, it's
Yeah.
make you free.
Make you free, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What you
King
thought was
James,
true is not necessarily so.
right,
So.
right. And the higher intellectual center card, at least as I see it, opens us to new possibilities that are very much out of the box.
Right, cool.
And the consideration that something completely unfamiliar
Unexpected.
to us,
Yeah.
unfamiliar,
Okay.
not just unexpected, but even unfamiliar might show up. So anyway,
Cool.
anyone else?
Well, go ahead.
Okay, Connie, go ahead.
Okay, this is very puzzling. Pluto prodigy.
Holy moly!
Oh my God!
Three of you've got Plutos?
Plutos.
Wow.
Wow!
That's a positive poll. Yeah.
My
Wow.
husband's in Germany and he called just as we got started. So I didn't know that there were other people who pulled the same card.
Wow.
Three
Three
tonight,
of us.
ladies
Three
and gentlemen.
Plutos. Wow.
So one of the things that I like about Pluto as an energy, first of all the body type cards as a class, as a group, are about physicality of real world circumstances and appearances of them. So, in a lot of ways, Pluto can be the destroyer. It can be the deceiver. In the positive poles, it can also be the genius who comes up with the world-shaking change agents like Albert Einstein.
Steve
Um,
Jobs.
Steve Jobs, has had some positive, had some plutonian body type energy in him. Anyway, so but it is a very powerful energy, needless to say. That's what, it's part of the exotic body types. Go ahead.
Why did you choose menacing against prodigy?
Because it was interesting. The image that they gave me when I was asking about it is they said if you've ever read the Superman comics and you read either Lex Luthor or the character of Brainiac from Off-World, both of them were incredible geniuses, but they were also completely malevolent. And in that, then and you see the image that's there. That's Satan tempting Christ, right?
Saw that.
Because the arguments can be so incredibly alluring and deceiving and so forth, and it takes a lot to not be overwhelmed by the deception and or propaganda that the evil puts out. So it's menacing because of the fact it can undermine so much.
Well, I was looking at that because I did what you said to do. It's like when you're puzzled that you go look at the other side and you balance.
Right.
And this actually, when I first saw it, because I can't see very well and it's dark in here. So I was like, first I was like, who is that? Didn't recognize. And I'm like, and that's a prod, so I was like, what is that? And then I realized when it said Pluto, this is about generational change too. There really is. It's a big, it's not I wouldn't say it's a big energy, but it's narrow band and powerful and motivating. And I just wondered if this isn't part of the chaos energy, because we have the solstice, we have chaos energy, and then we might have something that's uplifting as well, because prodigy would also speak of having learned through your life to be the best you can be, experiential process, not just like I was born smart.
For those of you who know Schopenhauer, the philosopher, he had Plutonian energy, and his words were power. And he was a cynic, but his cynicism would cut to the chase. And he wasn't a pessimist; he was the true cynic, like George Carlin. It's like, let's cut the bullshit. Let's just say what's there. It doesn't mean it's negative, but just let's say what's there and get rid of all the rest. And I find Pluto energy very much like that. So things that were trying to be hidden, get torn away. So anyway, so for you Plutonian draw people, wow, what a group. What a group.
Napoleon Bonaparte had Pluto energy.
Absolutely. Napoleon had Pluto. Right, exactly.
Yeah, I have past life karma with Napoleon.
Really?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story sometime if you're interested.
So, this is great. I'm glad. Thank you for our discussions. Jillian, you look like you're ready to comment on your
Yeah,
card.
no, I came in late. I'm sorry I got stuck in traffic.
No, you did fine. You're doing fine.
Um,
We're just in it. Go
But
ahead.
the first card I pulled doesn't resonate for me, or maybe I'm just not in the mood.
That's fine.
I got I got elder, at least it was, and it was the negative pole, which is antiquated, which is like, fuck that. So I chose another one.
Well, just remember that, if you're feeling old today, that's what antiquated often means to me when in this deck on a personal level. Like, well, okay.
I'm feeling good. I'm wearing a sundress. It's beautiful. I've been walking for an hour and a half with a friend.
Oh,
You
shit.
know,
You're in like Flint. So what's the next one?
the next one was instinctive positive pole essential, which is a cougar or mountain lion that's very wary. You can tell from the ears.
Mhm.
So it looks like it's hunting. I could do that. And the opposite of that would be mechanical, which would be a great white shark. I'm not that. But I just think it's interesting to go from antiquated to essential.
Because when you're talking about the first chakra, the instinctive center, you're in essence at an essentially unconscious level. In other words, the
It's
instinctive center,
non-thinking. It's
it's you're just being your overleaves at the animal level.
mhm.
So
Yeah, no,
that, at
it
least
was
again, my interpretation.
that felt better. Um,
Good. We want you all to feel better as a
no,
result
I
of this
mean
class.
I'm not here to feel better, but it was just like, no, I'm not going to do antiquated today.
All right,
It
very
also
good.
means, though, Jillian, letting go of things which are used up and old and no longer serve your purpose around you.
Oh, good. Thank you for the interpretation. Keep chiming in. If anybody's got a hit, please feel free. That's part of the group growth in this class. So you want to see the two cards did anyone else want to share your cards before we move on?
Well, just briefly, I got the positive pole of greed, but that explanation about getting rid of stuff fits right in here because the gluttony is hoarding crap. So desire might be getting rid of everything that doesn't matter. So that explanation that Catherine gave me fits my card.
Oh,
Cool.
good. Good. All right.
Nice.
Very good. All right. Well,
Paige?
I'm gonna yes. Who just commented? Oh, I thought somebody commented. All right.
Steve, I have
Paige?
a question.
Yeah.
In terms of like that, the card essential, is that basically like cutting, casting off anything that's not essential?
Ah, now you see, Jillian, what I've been saying in this class is I believe it is too, because I believe when we're really being in our true, most reduced, essential animal self, which means our essence through a personality, nothing is attached to us except what is absolutely required in the moment for our survival. So for me, when I ever pick that card, how I interpret it for myself, I read it as be essential. That's a good thing. That's a minimalist card for me,
Okay.
which I call myself. I call myself a minimalist. Some days I look around and even though I have way less stuff personally than most people, I still am surrounded in a house that's just full, and I just go, because I know I don't interact with it. 90% of it I never interact with except every once in a while,
Hmm.
barely. But we have it.
Hmm.
Well, if you were a survivor, an animal trying to just get its way, it would travel as lightly and as stealthily as possible.
Hmm.
And that's essential to survival. So that's how I interpret it. And so if the word essential also triggers that meaning for you, it's absolutely valid.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Certainly. One of the things I'll reiterate for the whole of you here, because we have some folks who haven't been back in a while, is remember what I said about the cards. Besides being a Rorschach, they're flashcards from the Michael teaching, but they're also a free word association tool. See, in other words, the meanings of the cards that I've printed out in the booklet or on the website are not the only meanings that are valid. Whatever it triggers in you, like with Jillian just a moment ago, is absolutely valid as well, because that's the energy, obviously, that is meant to come up for reflection. Now, part two of that is if, as I've said, remember these cards are about also doing something a that is a bit of a stretch in the Michael teaching. We channels tend to do it, but it doesn't mean that necessarily you folks would necessarily think of it. And that is, I say, remember your synonyms. Not, for instance, the original positive pole of the instinctive center was atavistic. Atavism is an earlier state of or condition of of being, almost wild. And and so if any of us were in that state, notice it's similar, but I chose the word essential because it doesn't leave us just as, some kind of an animal form. It says also that the instinctive center is what our essence loads up the data banks into us when it sends us here into the physical plane. Why do you think when we go in and we do our past life regressions, what are we doing? We're going through our instinctive center up to the Akashic record and we're pulling out our data, right? But are we aware of it on a day-to-day basis? Is it usually part of us, part of our operating psyche? Sometimes it may be in subconscious, just below the auditory or behind us, but generally it's way back operating, like our DNA operates on us. So another way that I have interpreted that card when I've gotten it is I literally say, okay, this may be talking about, especially if it came up with, say, some body type cards, just to expand the context here a little bit, that it may be talking about something about in our DNA lineage, in our personal DNA makeup, or maybe in our if we were asking about another person, let's say, in relation to this, it may be that something that a mother, father, grandfather, person in our genetic heritage, and us are sharing. So I just invite you to everything that you know and every context that generates for you. And notice I've just generated several, is completely legitimate here. I am not trying to stuff you as the readers, nor the client who's reading this, into the boxes of the Michael teaching. However, as you have heard me say, we are using the nomenclature, the vocabulary, the terminology of the Michael teachings, because I think it's so useful and so valid on its face. And it has such a systemic, interconnected structure. And of course, some of the structure is, and I'll mention this again, as I will in every class in one way or the other, is part of the structure is you guys, is that, as I hold up the colored overleaf chart, you can see that, there are various associations between groups of cards. And I'll mention some of those tonight when we actually get into when I do a little bit of presenting some slides for you. And then we'll have somebody do some readings tonight, including one that I am going to do for you. Kath, you raised a hand?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you see a significant difference between an intellectually centered reader and an emotionally centered reader?
Ah, brilliant. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And also, I would say that the centering of either the reader or the recipient who is getting the session, their centers are likely to interpret the cards interestingly and differently.
Good.
Yeah. So that's a very astute point. Thank you, Cal. All right. So here's what I was going to show you guys for fun. The first one, because look at the cards I picked for us tonight. Let me activate the second camera here.
Wow.
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 Yeah. And I decided to show these right away, and then I'll lead into because these are two very significant cards in this deck. As I think I've shared with you, several times, but it's worth reiterating. For me personally, the Tao is the most important card in the deck. And then it's pair because it opens the deck, and then it's pair, which closes the deck, which is Nexus 77. Those two are profoundly important cards because whenever they show up, it says, okay, the Tao especially if it's showing up in the positive pole like this, the Tao is present for you to pay attention to everything around you and literally be as open to awareness as you can be. It's all here. It's all being turned on. Now, I didn't ask a question, by the way, like you guys didn't. So I didn't specify anything, but I got the hit to to pull two cards. And so this was the second card. This is the Essence Twin card. And it came up, and both of them, notice, are in the positive pole. And again, reiterating something I've said, that for me, I have defined the positive poles also as the illuminated side and the open side. So, in other words, when any reading comes up with a predominance of one pole or another, it's saying to you that the energy is open and receptive and illuminated, and asking you to pay attention to what might be possible. Whereas in the negative poles, it's often saying it's also saying pay attention, but it's saying things are contracted. Things might be in shadow. In other words, coming from out of your subconscious or unconscious. And so notice are the things that you normally wouldn't pay attention to. Now, how I interpret this when I see these two cards about this session, as soon as I put down two cards right before I flipped them over for myself, I just got, oh, okay, well, for the first card, it's me, and the second card is you as the gang, my audience. So here we are, presence and interconnected soulmates, even as a group. So I thought this was as expansive as an energy as I could possibly have hoped for tonight.
Really?
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So I wish you all the blessings of these amazing cards, that you may feel the presence of the Tao, and that you may feel within every one of us, even if we're not literally essence twins, that you feel that soul connectedness. So, all right. So I'm going to just shift over, and tonight's topic for the first 15 minutes before I show you the reading I want to do based on somebody's question tonight. I'm going to pull the plug on this, and I'm going to go and I'm going to share the my slides. By the way, Barbara, you had mentioned that you had some karma with Napoleon. Now, this is from this statue. Well, this photograph was taken at the Palace of Versailles. When I went to France that one time, I had a lot of fun, doing this. This was out in the one of the gardens. But anyway, so what I wanted to do with you, come on, there we go, is again, I just wanted to help you get a sense of the orders of magnitude, or when certain cards show up. I mean, they're all valuable in feedback, but if they show up, sometimes I think they are emphasizing that there's a certain power or a certain significance or a certain notice of alert that is being served. So here are the first two. The Tao card and the Nexus card are the beginning and the end. It's the Alpha and the Omega, to use the Greek terminology of all that is, right? Many of you literally have seen that I use the Alpha and Omega, overlaid the Book of Life for the Tao as the positive pole. The third one I consider important because it really represents us here on the physical plane, and that is the time card. You've heard in the Michael teachings and in other teachings, they say, oh, time is only here on the physical plane, or it's an illusion. Personally, I don't dismiss time as an illusion. We started out joking around as a class as we were all talking about our age and aches and, conditions and variables and everything. Well, time has affected us very significantly. The time card can also represent the timing of something. Where is it in terms of a process? Now, I will tell you, in the cycle set all the way down below, the soul ages, there are 5 stages in a process. You can think about that metaphorically as well. If you're in the infancy period of something, the infant soul, you're also, and if you were asking something about, well, where am I in achieving this, it'd be telling you you're in the beginning, right? And so whenever the time card comes up, it may be alerting you about something about, physical plane, looking at how you've used time, the timing of something, and so forth. Then, of course, the roll cards. Now, the Tao, the Nexus, the time, and the roll cards are my major arcana in this deck. Okay, for those of you who know the term arcana from the traditional tarot. And the roll cards are numbered just like they are in the Michael teaching, right? Roll 1 is server, roll 2 is artisan, roll 3 is warrior, roll 4 is scholar, roll 5 is sage, roll 6 priest, and roll 7 is king. So they follow that exact same numbering. I also want to point out that the cycle off card is the actual last card in the cycle set. So in other words, while you have infant, baby, young, mature, and old soul ages represented, I use cycle off as the capstone. Because as you know, in this teaching, how it relates to the Michael teaching is, what are we all doing incarnated? Well, we are incarnated to cycle off in order to move on to a different plane of existence. Now, in a way, though, I use cycle off, and I tell people this when I'm doing the reading for it. If it comes up, I use cycle off also, so to speak, as sort of the death card, or at least symbolic death card in this deck. Because if the cycle off card comes up, the positive pole is completion, and the negative pole of cycle off is I believe just is exhaustion. Because as you know, many of you who've read all sorts of, people talking about their lives and past lives, and sometimes when we die, all we do is we may or may not have advanced all that much. We just pooped out and we were just done. But because we were, out of energy, not because we actually advanced any. So that's also the 3 cards, personality and soul spirit, 56 and 58. And in there, 57 is self-love. So the self-love card, how big a deal Michael made, especially in the original materials, about self-love being the ultimate. They called it, agape, right? Agape for self, which they gave me a new term, by the way. Self-love in the positive pole is amor primera. That's Italian for first love or love first. Amor primera. And so it fits right between essence and person and soul spirit, because those 2 cards essentially get connected if you are more in a state of self-love. In other words, personality and essence get more of that clear communication that way. The covenant cards I mentioned last week. Some of you know the word covenant is, by the way, a very fancy term, which means forms of agreement. That could literally mean agreement that's just, kind of a simple promise, all the way to a major life commitment. So there's various degrees of covenants that we do in our lives. So karma is a covenant card. Self-karma is a covenant card. Life task is a covenant card. Essence twin is a covenant card because it's a covenant we made at creation. And also, I included in the covenant card because we agreed to be on the physical plane. We agreed to be in Maya. We agreed to be in Maya. So if you folks were looking at your threefold handout at the chart with all the colors, you would see that the covenant cards are shades of gray, or is a shade of gray. And I explain in the booklet and on the website the reason that they told me to do the shades of gray is because you've heard the old adage that life is seldom black and white, it's usually shades of gray. And what that means and why it was useful for these cards is that there is no one specific interpretation here that is absolutely transferable from person to person. There are different degrees per the person's connections and agreements. The Axis cards, I talk a lot more about the Axis cards and I use them than Michael often does in their channelings. Um, um, so 61 is expression, 62 is action, 63 is inspiration, and card 64 is assimilation. By the way, you'll notice if you look at again your threefold handout of the order of the way that I have constructed this deck, those numbers and those axes across the top here are the way that Michael had me organize the overleaf chart. They say expression is your first thing, the idea of your beingness, then your interaction, and then, believe it or not, inspiration is what you get when you have fully actually had the experience of something. That is when you form your relationship to it. And then when you digest it, i.e., assimilation, then it begins full circle again. So these are my hierarchies of the cards. They are taken from the Michael teachings and they are taken from, the consortium's interpretation. I just want to give you guys a heads up again. You can't do this wrong. You really can't. I invite you to always be aware that the main thing that I warn with anyone is when you are doing the larger readings, and there are two layouts that have 7 cards each, and one layout, the revelation spread, that has 10 cards, is the more cards you choose, it can feel more overwhelming because there is more input and therefore there's more complexity. And you notice I put down there overwhelm, negative pole of card 37 is the negative pole of the Jupiter body type. And confusion in the negative pole is, of course, the negative pole of goal of growth. So I just, wanted to make those associations for them. Don't let yourself get stuck. Just keep going forward. All right. Again, I've said that when you look in the corners of any of the cards, the major delineation on the cards I incorporated the good old fashioned same symbols to give people an anchor point of, the regular playing deck, right? So diamonds are expression axis, both ordinal and exalted. The club, like to hit something, is the action axis. That's king and warrior. The heart, the emotional center, right, is the server and priest, and then the assimilation axis is spade. So that, just so you know, those are some of the symbols. So this is these are some of the symbols that I use. I'm just explaining a few cards tonight, and then we're going to get into them. You'll notice that once again, here's the alpha and omega, the beginning and the ending, right? These are the Greek symbols of all that is. And I have it transposed over the book of life. So the book of life is open in the positive poles of presence, and it contains everything. Now, flipped around, you notice that the void is still the totality of all it is, but it usually feels completely unfamiliar and we're disillusioned, or we are dispossessed, or can't find ourselves in time and space. So you'll notice the image I used there was the black hole. In it, we are literally going through a chaos node, to use Susanna Redell's kind of terminology. Now, interestingly enough, I don't think I have it here. Yes, I do. There it is. In the Dow, so the other half of the Dow set is the Nexus card, and notice that the background is the black hole, because in the black hole all probabilities are equal. Everything is possible. And by the way, you'll notice in the negative pole there, I have 4 dice that show a plus sign, a couple of negative signs, and then a blank. And that represents the convergent, divergent, and or erasure nexus types. Because sometimes the Dow likes to come in and just apply the great eraser and just kind of say, okay, I'm taking this out of the game. Whereas convergent is when it says, all right, I'm blending these parallel realities, to see what brings in a new. And then divergent is literally says, okay, we're taking these certain things out of the equation. So those symbols there, if you get the negative pole of nexus, again, it may mean that it is a representation of something has been removed or something's been erased. But if you talk to the person and say, God, I don't know what I'm feeling, notice it's that sense of the unknown. And just say that's, the Nexus card is a very powerful card. And by the way, I interpret the Nexus and the Tao cards as the Tao is the eternal presence of the unchanging state of what the Tao created. And yet, the Nexus card is the eternal changing and rearranging of alterations of all those possibilities. So you have foreverness and constancy of change all within this deck. So the soul age cycles I identified with the Nautilus, because you've heard Michael even use this metaphor before visually. So I used it as well. So in all of the cycle cards, the time card, there it is in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see the cycle card. And then as I go through the soul age cards, which will just, I'm just briefly going over in the next few minutes, you'll see a few images. First of all, it's that purity of initiation, which is the little baby with the wings. That picture is artist Beau's niece, Kate, and she doctored up the picture like that. And by the way, Tate is now 24.
Wow.
So she is not that little baby anymore. But anyway, it's that purity. When we start off, we're literally the blank slate, right? The tabula rasa, as they say. And of course, in the world, we are helpless. We do need others. So some of the images that I put is, you notice that this is I forget the name of this particular species of monkey, but on the primates list, it is a very young, still undeveloped primate, right? And just like we have a little baby image in the other pole. Now, if I advance to baby soul, I represent the fact that we are advancing in energy and in maturity, not just as personalities, but obviously, if this were somebody asking a spiritual reading, you got soul ages, you'd know what to do, right? But if you were asking about the stages of a process or the maturity of an individual, you can see how some of these concepts would apply there too. So now we looking up we have a primate now that is a little higher on the evolutionary schedule. We have a young form of a gibbon here. We also have a child's body, and they're also represented at the bottom of the card. Also in the upper left-hand corner, how many of you realize that Michael has also said that the infant soul period is the server period? The baby soul period is the artisan period. And so when we go on to the adolescence, which is of course young soul, you notice I use the chess horse, the knight, for the warrior symbol. So there's the warrior symbol represented there. And then, of course, we have the mandrill, a much higher developed primate, very aggressive, very showy, fierce, very tough, right? Because that also reflects a lot of that energy. And of course, here we have an adolescent pictured in the other pole. When we move on to natural, now we have a primate that has some sentience, right? But chimps are also capable of violence and territoriality, but they also can recognize themselves in a mirror and they communicate. And so notice I'm making these comparisons and I'm adding in these symbols to the cards to give it, an expansive quality. So that when you and that other person are doing these readings, you can look at these corner symbols as additional inputs that, might just prompt something. And then lastly, of course, we have the old soul card. And notice the old soul's kind of shrinking, as happens as our bodies get older. The star represents the sage set. So there it is in the upper left-hand corner. And then, of course, there's our ultimate old soul primate, right? There's the orangutan. Generally very relaxed, very peaceful. Certainly capable of violence, but also capable of tremendous, connection with their troop and even connection with people. So I put all these in as symbols to try and augment and add different layers to these cards. So this is the Soul Age set. Then of course completion and cycle off is the last of the cycle set, and it represents if a person were to get this, they're done. In whatever process, project, relationship, time in being with something, job, whatever. If they get this, that means they're usually done in some fashion. And you can see in the lower right hand corner, I have a battery with a red X on it, meaning dead battery. You're out of juice. Forget about it. Nothing's going to work here. And then, of course, a lot of people have commented on the image I have for the negative pole. Yep, and it is what it is. That's correct. That is a toilet and ready to be flushed. Okay. All right. So the body types, they each bear the astrological symbols, as those of you who are astrologer types know, and so forth. In terms of the way that I interpret the body types, by the way, this is all on the website, but just to go through it, for me, the body types represent a shape of the situation. They represent appearances, how we're showing up. They're also representing the energetic form that might be kind of like containing either the persons involved or, the way that you should think about presenting yourself. Because again, body types are seen in the world, right? And we are judged on appearances. So metaphorically, we're talking about the body, appearances, and we're also talking about potential for physical health, the way that Michael has designated. So, you see a lot of familiar terms, quick, nervous, erratic. I've blended both positive and negative adjectives here, synonyms. So Venus is about image, beauty, sensuality. action, confrontation, endurance for Mars. Lunar is earnest, capable of very, secretive kind of subterfuge. It can also be physically weak. It's the body type that can be most susceptible to uh, feeling a lack of vitality. Only followed by the solar body type is the next one that would do that. Saturn, of course, you know how biased we are in Western cultures to Saturnian body types, right? Me and Paige have some Saturn in this group here. They're taller. They have the kind of more squarish face, the brow ridge, and people tend to, elevate that body type as having some kind of status or power. Pluto, we mentioned, genius, edgy, dangerous, evil. By the way, let me just mention, since we got three Plutos here tonight,
Or
about
I'm actually have some Pluto body
oh,
energy.
that's right, and actually, Mike has Pluto
I'm
body type embedded in him.
I'm not dangerous though.
I hope you're
but
not
it,
evil either.
but Mike,
I'm a
the
Democrat.
but the edginess, and the curiosity, and the deductiveness of that element in your way of life, that Pluto energy is always right on the edge, in your presence, observing, peering, trying to pick out the subtleties, which is what which is one of the very amazing elements of this body type can give. Dangerous and evil certainly isn't enhanced in everyone, but I know some people with Pluto energy who can be extremely cold narcissists.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. It depends, Mike. You see, I mean, you have a couple of percent, but all the if we're talking about overleaves now, folks, in the Michael teaching, Michael even says it is very, very, very rare to see anybody have one of the three what they call exotic body types, Pluto, Uranus, or Neptune, represented in their composition more than say about 3 or 4%.
Yeah.
Very rare.
Really?
Usually it's about like 1, 2, 3%. And on occasion, a person might even double up and get a couple of exotic body types, but still the other seven are going to dominate. It's those are the ones that are most prominent literally in the gene pool anyway. So you're going to have probably a primary body type. I'm primary Jupiter. I'm almost equal Saturn. And then my tertiary is Venus. But I have 1% Neptune in me. And so the exotic body types, when you're reading them as cards, know that you're talking about the kind of fringe elements, extremely sensitive, extremely, and I call them exotic because again, they don't show up usually in great amount or in a great number of people. But when they show up as cards, it means there's some kind of flamboyance or something that's potentially destructive or something that is potentially, really earth shattering. Like, for instance, Uranus can be incredibly dynamic and magnetic and represent breakthroughs more than, say, Pluto's breakdowns or Pluto's breakouts. Like Albert Einstein completely broke out of the old mode of Neptunian, I mean, not, excuse me, Neptunian, of Newtonian physics, right? When he created the theory of relativity. So none of these are bad or good. They're qualities to explore. And I just really want to have you guys, be aware of those qualities. And then, of course, you can always look at the pictures, and the meanings are always going to be distilled by you as the reader or you as the recipient of the reading, and you then doing a reading for the other person. the idea is to help start a conversation, what it is that might be, useful to them. By the way, here's the axis group quickly, and then we'll move on. Expression card. Notice I have diamonds again. The expression, like all the axis, up in the upper right hand corner, has the Tao, alpha omega represented, because these are the four quadrants, or the four pillars of the Tao, the axis. And so there's action. Again, you see the clubs represented twice, and then the Tao symbol in there. You have the inspiration card. The transformation card I have. This is the only place that the symbol of the blue butterfly appears in the entire deck, is on this card. It's transformational. And then lastly, um, they told me to include this because it's the best physical analogy, is the assimilation axis, since it's only one axis. That is to say, there is no exalted or ordinal on it. It's just the neutral um, um, uh, column. They said everything under that heading is digestive. So they had me put the little guy with doing his, digesting whatever he's taken in there. All right. So I'm going to stop the share, and we're going to take a moment and say, with some of the things that I showed you, I realized I didn't pause at all for anyone's questions. But does anyone have any revelations, questions, thoughts, comments that you'd like to make now?
Well, the digestion thing, the power chakra is right where we digest. That's where we get our power.
That's true. The entire process, though, if you notice, Mike, it starts by what you eat,
Right.
going down your esophagus,
Right.
into your stomach, breaking down, okay, getting out, and then through the large and small intestine, where it takes out the nutrients, it separates out the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, and then ends up literally down at your instinctor center at the colon.
Right.
So it's literally, that's the entire process of assimilation from the start to finish. Good observation, though. Thank you. Anyone else before I move on to the next thing? Okay. So, gang, I'll tell you what I wanted to show you tonight. So far I've been having you do some of the shorter readings because they've been relatively easy. And I'm glad when they're relatively easy. It makes me happy, and makes it somewhat so that I know you guys are feeling good about it. Now, I've been asking you all, whether or not you might, if somebody wants to have a reading. Tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask someone to have a reading, and I'm going to demonstrate a specific layout, a specific spread called the Overleaves Spread. Now, you have to prepare for the Overleaves Spread unless you do this electronically. So what I've done, and I'm going to show you guys here, I'm going to share my second camera again. All right. I'll pull it back a little bit so you can see. So I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, I guess you can. At least I can see to mine. I have 7 stacks of cards in my big feet. What those 7 stacks represent, even though they're face down, I'll turn them over for you to see, is that's the role group, the goal group, the attitude group, the center group, the chief feature group, the body type group, and the mode group. In other words, those 7 pieces. I'm sorry? Oh, maybe I heard something in the background for someone. Okay. Anyway, so I wanted someone to be my guinea pig who might want to have a pretty comprehensive reading about the overleaves of a general situation. It could be a personal general situation, but this is, or it could even be the situational overleafs that a person may be demonstrating in a certain context. I have found that this thing, I've only had a couple of overleaf readings that came close to a person's overleaves. The most I've ever had a match for them was 5 cards out of 7. And I advise on the website not to do a person's overleaves, but you can. And of course, people are always curious, right? But situationally, the overleaf spread can be used like this. All right. So does anyone have something come to mind where they think they might like to evaluate it as if they were looking at an entire profile, overleaf profile of the situation? So complete with role, goal, mode, attitude, all of it, all the pieces. Almost as if it were a person or at least a thing with an overleaf set stuck in time. What would that be? Yvonne, Connie, you have your hand up. What did you have? What would you like?
See if you think this fits.
All right, go ahead.
At the gathering, we
Uh-huh.
had a conversation about the future
Uh-huh.
and how it seemed like we needed to somehow do something different in the future. And so the question that I have is, are there people out there right now of any age who would be interested in learning more about the Michael teachings if we could reach them through trainings or some kind of outreach? Is there a potential audience for it? Or is that something that would lend itself?
It's not that in some ways I would say we should try the revelational spread, because that's a good question, and I would say let's entertain it for next week. This kind of spread, you're looking for the character of a situation, set of circumstances, a person, or even a state of existence, and how it might be described by a set of overleaves. So let me just put it in this way. My first thought is, like I said, your question would probably be better represented by the revelation spread, because there are placeholders in there that actually I think fit more. And it's a 10-card spread. This is a 7-card spread. This is almost like if we tried to apply it that way, the way I would rephrase the question is, what set of overleaves might or what characteristics might be attracted to this teaching, more than others? Then in which case, maybe we'd turn over a roll card of, say, I don't know, scholars, and it would suggest that scholars would be the people that it would most appeal to. And then it might turn over, say, the acceptance card, and then it would say people in acceptance might be people who are attracted to this teaching. I mean, we could do it like that. I don't know.
I'll withdraw the question and to a different spread. Maybe somebody else.
I'll tell you what, hold that for next week, and let's do that next week. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So does anyone have a ring-a-ding about something? If you were to imagine a set of overleaves trying to describe either a situation or a circumstance, heck, if you wanted to even ask about a person, how they may be displaying themselves at a given moment in time, you can ask the overleaf spread about them as well.
Can we volunteer somebody?
You mean in the group or yourself? What do you go ahead, Mike? Say,
just
elaborate.
In the group. I was just being funny in the group.
Oh, okay. Well,
so Steve, could we do like overleaf spread for this time in history?
Great question, Barbara. Sure,
Yeah.
let's do that. Okay, so I'll start picking. I can't even remember what they are, but we'll see by I'll look. Okay, so I've just picked up the centers. So I'm going to do my natural way of of picking the centers. And what I'm going to do is, all right, I've got one. So I've picked the centering and I'm going to put the cards off to the side. Remember that if you're going to do this reading for someone, gang, the only little bit of preparation you have to do is go through the deck and sort out all the goals, all the body types, etc. All right, so these are the attitudes. So let's see. So I'm going to pick an attitude. All right. And now I'm going to come over and uh-oh. I I anyway, never mind. Let's see. All right. And here are my modes. All right. So let me shuffle those around, switch them about a bit. Okay. All right. And here is the body types, and I'm floating these around. Thank you for bearing with me. So it's interesting. We have two priest cards in the mix so far. Okay, and then we got the body, a Jupiter body type, very grand. We certainly see a lot of that, don't we? Whether we think it belongs in the upright pole or negative or positive pole, we can determine that. Remember, just like I have given you guys permission, is if you think, oh, Steve, actually it fits better in the other way, then we'll flip it. All right, and this one is this is the roll card, and it shows the artisan. All right, so let me get rid of those. Look at the mode already. Yes, I did. Obviously, gang, could be a little bit of a tedium, to do this. So thank you for bearing with me. Okay, now I'm picking the Chief Feach card. Well, here, I'll tell you what, gang. I'll do this. Somebody bark out which one I should stop at. I'll do this way, like I did last time.
Stop.
Okay. So we got the impatience card. All right, for our chief feature. And then last but not least, we got our goal card. So I'm going to shuffle or mix them up again, and then I'll run my finger on them, and then you can tell me when to stop. Okay, ready? Anybody?
Now.
Okay. All right. So we have a very interesting collection here. I'm going to put the roll in the center, and I'm going to put the goal up here, and I'm going to put the mode and the attitude. Can everyone see? Good. Okay, I've got it. You can see them all right. All right. So here are our situational overleaves for this period of history. So we have an artisan in the positive pole. Let's see. We've got one.
They're all positive except one.
Interesting, except the higher center. And that's interesting too, the fact that we have a higher centering, right? And so what it says, it's in the negative pole of sympathy. The higher emotional center is sympathy. So
that's just a narrower focus, though, it's not really a negative, it's just a narrow focus.
Right. And it sometimes can be almost a codependence card, can't it? Not a negative, but where we feel so much for another person that we also might indulge them. Just that's one of the ways that I have interpreted sympathy in this deck. But okay, so that is a true statement. So we've got two priest cards, okay, and we have 6 in the positive poles, meaning that according to this overleaf spread, the predominant energy here is open, expansive, and possible to allow light in.
Creative.
And
Yeah.
and certainly with the role that we have the creative role, don't we? Now, of course, the amazing thing about, we all know about artisans with five inputs, right? Is that also the artisan, just like this year, at least through me, is artisan. I know JP and Mike got king and Troy got warrior, but the thing about it is it brings in all these things simultaneously. And though it can be extremely inventive and so forth, it can also get, kind of entangled, and have a difficulty trying to sort out and fixate on what one's going to do. Now, what about the goal in this? Anybody else have any comment about let's go through them all and then I'll ask you for your comments on what you noticed. Sorry, because I want to make sure I don't keep you guys too late. Okay, so the goal, acceptance. Acceptance in the original used to have the positive pole of agape, but I really thought that agape was a statement more and a word that really related more to, unconditional love and the kind of emotional state. Whereas a goal, I was seeing that it's the ability to find common ground, i.e., affiliation between myself and somebody else in accepting them, but also, finding that sense of my own inner peacefulness about it. So I wonder, to me, this is a mature soul card. Whenever I see the goal of acceptance, I see that as very much a mature soul kind of energy. We are trying to figure out how to kind of be with each other in a way that, either isn't necessarily not antagonistic, but not closed off. Because remember, the goal of acceptance is a sage card. And both the artisan and acceptance are both expression axis. They're both expression axis. Remember, I'm having you, I'm pointing out things. So we've got two from the expression axis, two from the three from the expression axis, two from the inspiration axis, and two from the action axis. So from that standpoint, we've got an interesting set of overleaves.
Yeah,
Now,
it's very powerful.
yeah, I mean, so notice, I mean, I think our mode of perseverance and our impatience chief feature are really interesting comments.
Mhm.
Just like spiritualist and acceptance are really an interesting pair.
Yeah.
Anybody have any feelings, gut insights, comments, things that come to mind about when you see this layout as overleaves for our current time? Thank you, Barbara, by the way. That's a lovely question and really applicable for this kind of layout.
What it says to me is, one, we're in a time of creation. We're in a time of, which is, you have to destroy in order to create. So it's a time of flux. The
Uh-huh.
acceptance is of learning to accept each other and moving more toward that mature soul. The spiritualist is inspiring people to see beyond what is into what could be. The perseverance says it's not happening right now. It's going to take a long time and we need to stick with it. The higher emotional again says it's a opening of the heart, and we need to work with that. And the impatience says that's just telling us we can't. I'm reading that we need to be aware of impatience, and we need to use perseverance in order to get through the whole process of chaos and creation and the challenges in order to get where we need to get. That's what I read in it.
Okay, very good. Very good.
I like it.
Okay. Um, anyone else have any comments? Because I'm going to do something. Yeah, go ahead, Jillian.
I just see like really interesting possibilities, not always things that I'd like. Like spiritualist is about possibilities. but is it possibilities I would like, or is it like the Silicon Valley Peter Thiel kind of, but see all the possibilities in life extension and um, you win some. If you're not a winner, you're a loser, all of that. But it's very interesting because it's like there's no question, for example, the artisan is the creative force, but creative force doesn't necessarily have good or bad. It's just creative.
Right,
Um,
right.
and so I see lots of and so what I'm looking at this is like being able to look at these cards and think, this isn't necessarily things that I would like to see, but there's just energy of different kinds that could happen. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. No, I think that's um, I want to expound upon that in that I really like the fact that you could use it open-endedly, and use these cards as larger placeholder descriptions and even acknowledge. Now, here's what I was going to add um, after you, but you gave me a perfect into it. So, gang, I like to play with my cards, and one of the things I do with my cards is I often, just to see what the other messages might be, is I'll flip them around. And
Mhm.
when I was looking at the negative poles of all these, I thought, oh my God, how interesting that in the negative pole of all these things, tell me that a lot of these things that the negative poles are showing aren't also really happening in our world right now. And yet, and what do we bring to it? We have to bring unconditional love in the midst of it if we were to look at all these in the negative poles. Do you get that? In other words, oh, how many people are doing ingratiation, which is, sucking up, right? To try and gain favor. How many people are putting on a false face, a mask, an artifice? How many people are feeling absolutely stuck in the grind of the negative pole of perseverance and monotony, or feeling like they're being ground down? And then feeling literally that blame energy. Well, we see that throughout
Yeah.
MAGA, don't we? And we
Yeah.
see that even in other areas as well.
Yeah.
But isn't in credulity, that is, one of the things that is overwhelmingly a function of, any kind of ideologue, people who have to believe. Yes, Catherine.
You're muted.
You're
You're
muted.
muted, Catherine.
The artifice card, the artifice negative pull. I mean, that's one of the things. It's self-deception as well as the artifice. You deceive yourself. So it ties into the spiritual, the negative pull of the spiritualist with credulity, with people believing false narratives, and then being overwhelmed by the false narratives and producing blame, and then everything becoming so overwhelming it goes on a single track. You get monotony. You stop seeing the possibilities of the positive poles, the spiritualist positive pole
Yeah.
anymore. And it becomes so locked into this single step forward, which is only through ingratiation, which doesn't work. It doesn't get you anywhere. It's like it's self-fulfilling all the way through. So that's what actually when you switch them over after Jillian, that's what I was actually thinking. I think, oh my God, look at these things in the negative poles. Because Jillian, you were mentioning that you thought the creative, the spiritualist might be some of the negative things that you were worried about being creative. And I thought this shows those worries that you had. But in the other perspective, I was seeing things more open-minded, open forward, leading forward, that they were potentials that were um, expanding rather than contracting because
Mhm.
it was in the positive poles. So fascinating spread.
Yeah, I know it is really interesting, and I wasn't even looking at it as as the negative pole. I was thinking somebody like, a Peter Thiel looking at it would see himself as, if he was looking, if this were Peter's cards, he would be saying all of the possibilities that I've been working hard for. are coming through. I just need to be persistent, the grandiosity, all of those things. So it's like who you are when you look at this stuff. And this was, brilliantly, Barbara made it into something that's not any one of us, but a time, but how we see the time. I was talking with a friend, went walking, about how I see this world right now. And I had talked earlier this morning with somebody who was more the Peter Thiel side and how she sees it. And we're like, whoa. So, it's just
The
where you
negative
stand
pole of
depends.
oxygen, self-deception.
Yeah, it's just
Right.
something to make you think and
Yeah.
consider other
Where
things.
you stand depends on where you sit.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, it's definitely a good spread.
It's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Interesting to, yeah, definitely interesting to ponder.
Thanks for that, Barbara, and of course, Steve.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really grateful that all of you have chimed, or that many of you have chimed in with different approaches. Do you get a sense of how to use this spread, not, just for a person doing their overleaf profile,
Mhm.
but as
Yes.
a caricaturization of a time, an event, possibly a person as they've presented themselves in a certain moment or in a certain situation? Um, but it's interesting because I find then that I've not only put on my Michael hat, but I've also put on my narrative building hat by using this group of words. And then, as I said, I like to always flip the cards around just to see, because frankly, I one of the things they told me when I was doing this deck, the positive and negative poles, and this may sound like a strange word, but they need to complement each other as far as defining the spectrum of possibilities.
Yeah.
So like that's
Mhm.
why by turning it over, you can go, oh wow. If I were to look at it from, like Jillian, that great little quip you just used, where you stand depends on where you sit, or your perspective, your point of view. Well, flipping the card is equivalent to intellectually flipping your point of view and saying, oh, or changing lenses, if you want to use that kind of a metaphor. And so I do this regularly um with my own readings. I want to just share this. I'm going to pull the card screen, and I just want to take you to the uh share the come on, brain here. Share my the Michael Card site for a minute. Um, First of all, as many of you've noticed, under the Michael Cards info is the cards by name list. So you can see all of them, positive and negative pole represented. And by clicking on any one of them, you can go to it, right? So what was the point that I was going to make? Oh, darn it. I was
Show
going
us the spread. You were going to show us the different spreads.
Yeah, oh yeah, I was going to show you the different spreads. Thank you. So if you go to the drop-down menu and you did an overleaf spread, you could put that in. And if we said, now this is going to probably come out differently than if we did it, in person, right? But
Mhm.
oh, I know what I wanted to show you. I rather than go into show, I'm just going to choose any card because I want to show you a feature of the online app that is very useful at times. So I've picked submission just as a random. You notice that over in the left-hand side, it shows the card in the upright position as a start. You see this little plus and minus sign? If you were to click it, the minus sign, it'll flip the card for you and it'll show you what the negative poles look like. And if you were to continue to scroll through that, it would show you all of the pre-made answers about submission. That's one of the benefits of the app, that you could go through and scroll through anything, and then if you wanted to turn it back over to the positive pole, you just click the plus sign and then scroll through those. So I wanted you to see that as that the mechanical version, that the electronic version of this deck at michaelcards.com, and for that matter, at my the Michael teaching site, because I have this exact same app on both sites. But either way, this function works. And I find it's a useful way sometimes to scroll through different meanings. And by the way, while I really like being with someone in person doing a reading, like I had an enormous pleasure doing a revelation card spread for Shepherd Hoodwin, my colleague, at the East Coast Gathering. I mean, that was very, very great for me because I admire him, and that he was really sincerely interested enough, and was willing to receive that from me. But it's what I continue to say. We had a conversation. I said, so Shepherd, you know these things and this terminology as good as anyone alive. When you see these cards in relationship to each other, what do they mean to you? And then I had him explain, and I said, so in the way that I built them, here's how some of these relationships in in the physical forms have additional layers. So I liked that one-on-one things. What I was going to get at, if folks, you could actually be on a Zoom call. Somebody could ask a question. Bless you, Connie. And let's say we just did the health and healing spread, and we put in Connie's cough. And we asked in there about what it is, right? And so we have the placeholder. It says that the positive pole of arrogance, pride, is the condition that's under evaluation here. It says the symptoms. Well, how lovely! Unconditional love, are your symptoms. Your cause is perhaps being too productive in moving center. Your treatment is, perhaps getting some competent help. And then what really needs healing? Well, okay, negative pole of Venus, something slovenly here going on. What maybe might need a little bit of a extra attention. And then, your prognosis is, to regain your agility. So you and I just picked one for Connie. Thank you, Connie, for allowing me to just, presume you. Not that this has anything to do with you at all, except that I just used your name. But the point is, if you guys are doing a Zoom call with a friend or a client, go to the website, share the screen, and then you can have them go to the same screen, let them share their screen, let them do the type in. The point is, you could still do the reading this way. And then when you have your layouts, if they say, well, I don't really understand that card. Watch this, gang. First of all, by the way, you've got this reading has 5 positive poles. So this is open, expansive. It's indicating that even what really needs healing, this may be something in shadow. And that since there's a hamburger there, maybe it has to do with eating the wrong kind of food, or etc. But anyway, you can click on any one of these cards and it takes you to that card, and then you can go through and say, well, in the negative pole, or other positive poles, what does it mean? And then you can scroll through, and then you can go back, and there it is. So anyway, so you have multiple tools with this, the electronic and the physical version. You can do readings in different ways, in multiple ways, to get the same kind of interaction, which I'm hoping for you. And then, of course, you bring your knowledge of the Michael teaching to these cards. Your interpretations are totally and always valid, just as you understand them. Then taking them literally is completely valid as, a word trigger, kind of free association thing, completely valid. It's about you and the other person, or you and yourself having that conversation. gee, what it might mean. And by the way, I really thank you, Barbara, Jillian, and Catherine, for your interpretations and how thorough and how different each of them were, and yet how valid each one of them could be. But also, we could say, how valid as a mirror back to yourself about what this time might be. These are the lenses that you chose to line up to give yourself a different perspective. Whether you got a mind opening or a different point of view or just a curiosity, whatever. I don't care. They're all valid, but it's interesting to be able to go through the exercise. So, and that's why I did this class. And thank you, Connie Meyer, because she was one of the main reasons that she really wanted to see these cards in action. She really wanted to take a class, and I really wanted to give her one. So thank you, Connie. You were the impetus. You were the motivator. And then I got some of the usual suspects, and I got Kath roped in as an unusual suspect. So it's been great to have her here as well. So anyway, gang, we've gone a little over. I just want to answer any closing questions before we call it a night.
That was really helpful, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really
you're welcome.
interesting.
Awesome. I
Thanks.
wants to give you guys your money's worth. What can I tell you?
You're doing that.
Yeah.
Great. So, all right, gang. Well, if there's no other questions or no other final comments, we will say ta-ta for tonight. I'll see you in a week. Same bat time, same bat channel, as they say. I'll get together the transcripts and the videos and all the rest of the stuff for any of you who want to, and I should be able to get that done by Sunday. I got some outdoor stuff and a couple of client sessions over the next few days. So I'll get to it. And like I say, it should be there by Sunday, and I'll have the links sent to you all. Okay, everyone. Thanks
Okay,
again
thank
for
you.
everything.
Good
Oh, and
night.
some of you don't forget that the quarterly review of the Overleaves, I guess many of you actually are already signed up, but for those of you who you may want to join us, it's a week from tomorrow night. So,
Oh,
Great.
all right.
all right. Take
All
care,
right.
gang. Good
Good
night.
night.
Hey, everyone,
Bye.
be well. Happy solstice.
Happy solstice. Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth.
Bye, gang.